Hey there friend, Zach here, and let me ask you a question. Do you like gold?
I love gold!
Money makes the world go round, right? If you want something, you're gonna have to pay up. The same is applied to video games. If you want that fancy new item in the shop, you're going to need to fork over the currency for it. You probably won't find an RPG that doesn't have an item shop of some sorts nowadays. Some games, like Team Fortress 2, actually have an in-game economy that changes rapidly. Of course, we kinda know how that's turned out at the moment. So yeah, money is everywhere in video games, but what about characters who enjoy gold? Well, there are quite a few greedy characters out there, but the one character that comes to mind immediately has to be the cash and garlic-loving Wario.
Yahoo!
I probably don't need to explain who Wario is, but in case you may not know, Wario is one of Mario's rivals. Now if you don't know who Mario is, well, you might want to find that out first before you watch this, just saying. As mentioned before, Wario loves his garlic. Yeah, garlic. But more importantly, he is all about the green paper. Money is always at the top of Wario's mind, and it truly seems like he will do anything to obtain as much wealth as possible. He'll go on adventures, win races, put on disguises, and even make his own microgames. As long as he is getting some cash, it seems Wario won't stop at anything. Now, about the games, and you know, for a rival to one of gaming's biggest icons of all time, Wario has a decent amount of them just for himself. Arguably the most iconic series of Wario has to be the WarioWare series. The WarioWare games are a collection of small microgames for you to play, in which you have to beat them in a certain amount of time, usually a few seconds. There is also the Warrior Land series, 2D adventure games where you have to go and collect keys to defeat bosses in different zones and collect all the treasure you can. However, believe it or not, Wario did star in a 3D beat-em-up title, and funny enough, this was the only 3D title Wario has main evented. This title is known as Wario World. Wario World was released for the GameCube way back in 2003. Jeez, 2003, huh? Anyway, Wario World actually wasn't developed by Nintendo, but rather published by them. It was actually developed by a company called Treasure. If you have ever played any of the Wario Land games, you know that collecting is one of the main focuses. With treasure scoured across the land, your goal is to find as much of it as you can. The goal is the same for Wario World. Yes, your main focus is to save the land, but who said a little gold along the way was a bad thing? The story to this game is actually fairly simple. Wario's completed construction on a shiny new castle, and there's a ton of treasure lying around. However, in the lower level of the castle, unbeknownst to Wario, there's an evil black jewel that turns Wario's treasure into monsters. Yeah, you heard me right. Treasure into monsters. Treasure into monsters. Wario World for you. As Wario goes on to save his gold, you encounter these little fairies known as Spritelings along the way. It's revealed that these Spritelings actually fought the evil jewel long ago and secured it away. When Wario stole it, the jewel had the chance to reawaken. Whoops. So it's up to Wario to reclaim his treasure, defeat numerous bosses, and save all the Spritelings to stop the evil jewel once and for all. That's basically the story for you, so let's go ahead and move right on to the gameplay. I gotta say, the controls are actually pretty fluid. I've always been a huge fan of snappy controls in video games, and Wario World doesn't hold back. It's very simple to move around and navigate. The combat is also very fluid. For a beat-em-up game, you might be expecting some insanely difficult controls to master with different attacks and possible combos, but the lack of an advanced moveset works well for Wario. You can punch, charge into, spin, and my favorite, pile drive your enemies. Pile driving your enemies in particular is quite satisfying. I don't know, it just feels like the ultimate finishing move, especially for bosses. As for the enemies, they're pretty easy to defeat. 1 or 2 hits to a normal-sized enemy will take them out, and you'll need to either throw or pile drive the larger enemies once they are knocked out in order to defeat them. Once you defeat an enemy, they drop coins for you to collect. Remember, these enemies used to be your treasure, but they were transformed by the evil jewel. Once you defeat them, you can walk into the coins they drop to collect them. Or, vacuum them up. The same thing goes for the boss battles. Once you defeat a boss, they also drop a ton of coins for you to collect. Hey, speaking of bosses, let's talk about them for a bit. I truly feel that they are a highlight to this game. Each one is so different and unique. Each boss, excluding the first and the last one, has 5 hearts, or skulls, that you need to take out in order to defeat them. The first boss only has 3 skulls, and the final boss, well, we'll get to that later on. As for the designs of the bosses, well, they're at the very least interesting.
Well, this guy looks harmless. I mean, I bet I can beat him in just a few minutes.
If there was ever any form of nightmare fuel for me as a child, it would probably have to be Jim Carrey's cameo in this game. I can't say that Wario has never had a history of weird boss designs though. This game doesn't try to throw off that formula. Some of the bosses are actually kinda cool looking, such as Captain Skull, my high school mascot, and Bollywood Battletoad. Each boss requires a different strategy to defeat them, but for the majority of them, yes, you can pile drive them to their defeat.
Oh man! Here it is! This is Tombstone Pile Driver!
As for the final boss, you guessed it, you have to fight the evil jewel. And instead of having 5 skulls, this boss has 8. In order to defeat it, you have to free the spritlings imprisoned in crystals around the battlefield, in order for them to attack the jewel and knock it to the ground for you to attack. After defeating the jewel, the spritlings thank you by restoring your castle. However, the interesting part is that Wario World has multiple endings. You get a different castle built for you depending on how many spritlings are saved throughout the levels. Now, if you're like me during my first ever playthrough of this game, once you beat it, you might find yourself saying, man, that was really short. And it's true, if you just power through Wario World, you'll find that it only takes a few hours to complete. But if you really want to beat the game, you actually have a lot you need to collect in each level. Wario games are all about collecting after all. First, you need to collect all golden Wario heads in each level. By collecting all 5 of them in one level, you increase your heart count by half, meaning if you collect all 5 of them in 2 different levels, you get 1 full heart added. Then, you have to collect 8 different treasures in each level. These treasures are scattered around in the levels, and each one is color-coded. You first need to find a switch and punch it, or throw something at it. Then, you need to go and find the tile that matches the color of the switch you just activated to open the chest and collect the treasure. Next, you have to free all the spritlings. There are 5 in each level for you to free, and they can actually provide you with some useful information on different abilities, how to defeat bosses, and more. We aren't done yet though. You also have to collect all the red crystals. There are 8 of them in each level, but for some levels, you only need to collect a few of them. Although you will need to find all of them if you want to 100% the game. They are used to unlock the chamber to the final boss at the end of the levels. In order to find these red crystals, unlike the other items that are scattered around the level, you will find these trapdoors along the way. You can ground pound through them and you will be taken to another room that contains some platforming or even a puzzle that you need to complete in order to obtain a red crystal. Some of these trapdoors actually require you to pile drive an enemy through them to open. Now in these puzzles, you can actually put your camera to use. The weird thing is that outside of these puzzles, you actually can't use your camera in the levels themselves. However, I can look past this because the levels in existing camera are designed to where you really don't need to use it. The camera comes in handy with these puzzles because you can check all your angles before you make a jump or pass through a hole so that you can ensure you make it and not slip up. Now, let's say you made it to the end of the level, but you realized that you had missed some treasure along the way. There's a handy bunch of balloons that you can grab onto that will take you back to the start of the level. But fair warning, you will want to make sure that you are for certain missing a piece of treasure before you grab on, or else you will have to just go through the level again just to get to the boss. To finish off, let's talk about the music. And you know what? I absolutely love it. It's actually home to one of the most iconic tracks in the Wario series, Greenhorn Forest. The music in this game just screams Wario, and there honestly isn't a single track I dislike. And as annoying as it is, I actually love the pause screen theme.
So that's Wario World, and you know, I have to say, for a game that was developed by a third party, it turned out really well, especially using a first party IP. Another good example of this, I feel, is Sonic Mania. You give a first party IP a huge name in the industry to a group of fans, and you can make something amazing out of it. But Sonic only has golden rings. Why play that when I can have a whole golden statue of myself?
Hey, thank you so much for stopping by today. I really don't have any huge announcements other than the fact that I am going to be starting back up in college in just a few weeks, so I may slow down on the upload rate for a little while just because I want to get used to how my semester is going to be. and how I can work around that with my YouTube uploads. So I just want to, in other words, I just kind of want to get used to how both are going to work and how that's going to work with my schedule, because I also do have a part-time job as well. Other than that though, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and until next time, take care.